welcome once again to What's Going On. My name is Dolores Vidal, and our co-host, Janette Cranshaw. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we have a pretty exciting program today, and I'm hoping that you will enjoy it as much as we have enjoyed discussing with our guests what we're about to discuss on air. It's been very interesting. So, first of all, I would like to introduce Ellen Gitelman, who is the executive director of Belmont World Film. As you may know, and if not, please make note of the fact that the Belmont World Film will begin on Monday and go until April 16th. There's some wonderful films that Ellen will talk to us about. Hello.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. So we start Monday, March 12th. It also happens to be, interestingly, the very tail end of World Language Week. So it's appropriate that Belmont World Film takes place every year at the beginning of March at some point during World Language Week. So this year we're focusing on languages from French-speaking countries, and hence the name of their series is French Twist.
Uh-huh.
So it features films from countries all over the French-speaking world, from France itself to Canada, Poland, Lebanon, even Italy, where French is spoken. There's an expatriate group of French people in Italy. So we're...
And in Africa as well?
Africa, we're not. This year we aren't showing any. Well, I guess Lebanon would maybe be considered Africa in a way. But this year we aren't showing any films from Africa. Yes, but even Africa or Haiti or other islands in the Caribbean where French is spoken. So conceivably, we could show films from Haiti or Guadeloupe if there were actually films that came from those areas. But
and you have an interesting exception, which is Mr. Sushi, right?
Right. We actually have two exceptions. One is a film from Iran. It was actually shot on the streets of Tehran, and it was actually done secretly, with great risk to the filmmakers, and because they wanted to capture what life was really like in Iran for young people who were trying to express themselves during an oppressive Islamic government that censored pretty much every form of self-expression. So it's a pretty realistic film showing that people the world over have hopes and dreams and wishes for love and appreciation and artistic expression. Iran is not a different country. We're very much... the youth of Iran is very much like the youth of anywhere in the world today. So that's on March 22nd, and it's in honor of Nowruz, which is the Persian celebration of the spring equinox. And so that's pretty exciting. Although it's not actually the actual day, because we know we'd never get anybody there if it was on that day. And then the other exception is this Mr. I guess you could call him Mr. Sushi. It's called Jiro Dreams of Sushi. It's a sneak preview of a film that's opening later at the Kendall Square Theater. And it is about the world's only sushi chef with 3 Michelin stars.
Aha!
And so in that respect, it fits into our French connection, because there is a little bit of French in the film. Very small amount, but there is some French. And it's actually a limited audience. We can only have 100 people at that screening. So if you want tickets, I'd recommend getting them now.
Reserving them in advance.
Yes.
And would you do that at the Studio Cinema?
You can reserve them at the Studio Cinema, but you can also purchase them online. You can get them at the Studio Cinema, but you can also get them online at mktix.com/BWF. So if you feel better about having your tickets, which I recommend because they will sell out, I do recommend purchasing them there. Or if the Studio Cinema is convenient, you can stop by and pick up tickets there. And prior to that screening, we're having a sushi dinner because you can't watch this film without eating sushi. It's too mouth-watering a film. And it's not just about sushi, but it covers the whole culture of sushi and the Tsujiki fish market, which is some people are probably familiar with it. It's the world's largest fish market, and it does cover that and the whole selection of sushi fish for sushi. And in fact, after the film is over, we have two people who are going to speak about it. One is Ted Bester, who's the chair of the anthropology department at Harvard. And he has actually written a book on the Tsujiki fish market and the culture of sushi in Japan.
How interesting.
And Peter Grilli, who is the president of the Japan Society of Boston, will also speak. He's actually eaten at this restaurant, which is it's a rare occurrence. But first of all, it's very small. It's in the basement of an office building, and it only seats about 10 people at a time, and it's extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. So he's eaten here not once, but twice. So he's going to tell us whether it's worth the trip to Japan.
Well, that's interesting.
Yes,
so
yeah.
Don't forget to make a note in your calendars that between March 12th and April 16th, this Belmont World Film will be making these offerings. Make your reservations if you would like to. And I really thank you very much, Ellen, for being with us today.
Sure. I'd like to say one more thing, that on Monday, which is the opening night, we are showing Monsieur Lazare, which is one of this year's Oscar nominees for Best Foreign Film. And prior to the screening, we're holding a reception that's sponsored by the Quebec delegation of Boston and the Canadian Consulate. So if people want to come, they should sign up for that as well in the same place.
Where will that be? At the theater?
And that's at the theater. Same with the
Excellent.
sushi dinner. And we were also very grateful to the French consulate, who is the overall sponsor of the series as well.
Well, I can't
the second
wait.
year in a row. Yeah, so. Okay,
So,
well, thank you.
get ready.
Yes, and I think we're going to be seeing a trailer of the
Yes.
trailer for the.
In
If
fact,
you want to see the films,
we're
there will
going
be
to
a trailer.
introduce, yes, the
trailer for
the
the,
trailer. It's a public service announcement, right? That
Right,
we're
right. But
going
this
to
is the
offer
trailer
right
that's
now.
showing at the Studio Cinema now, and it'll give you a taste of what's happening during the series, a taste of the scenery and some of the actors, some of whom we'll recognize are pretty well known. Actually, one you probably won't recognize, Vanessa Paradis, Johnny Depp's, the mother of Johnny Depp's children, is playing in a very different role from Norma, but she's in the film Café de Flore. So,
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thanks
you.
very
for
much.
having me.
Just
Can't hear. And here we are once again. This time, I have the pleasure of introducing Diane Covert, who is a resident here in Belmont and has a rather interesting background as well as a very interesting profession that she's going to share with us. She is a licensed, she has a master's in social work. However, she does not practice that profession. She is first and foremost an artist. And welcome to you this morning.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Now, you've had a lot of different exhibits on various topics that have been of particular interest to you. Would you like to discuss those?
Sure. I would say all of my work has to do with kind of the intersection between art and ethics. So the first one, the one that's probably the best known, is called the X-Ray Project. And that's an installation of X-rays and CT scans of people who survived terror attacks in Jerusalem. But Jerusalem is an international city, so the radiographs are anonymous, but the people whose slides they are come from all different backgrounds, all different socioeconomic levels. There are Jews, there are Muslims, there are Christians, elderly people, little kids. And I made that in order to kind of counteract the media narrative, which was an obsession with the perpetrators back in the early part of the 2000s, rather than something that portrayed empathy for the victims themselves. So I came up with this idea and toured it, various colleges and universities, medical schools, galleries, yeah.
And it's X-rays that with an explanation of what it's showing.
Right.
That particular.
Right.
project.
These are X-rays and CT scans, CAT scans.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is even three-dimensional, and it moves. It shows, it's a reconstruction. This is from thousands of individual X-rays of a woman's head and neck and the injuries to that area. I worked with radiologists here in Boston who gave me the notes, and then I also worked with a bunch of surgeons and medical professionals who would come in and talk about what the prognosis probably was and what this meant. And we also worked with political figures. We worked with diplomats, consul generals of places like India, for example. They talked about what terrorism meant to them. Daniel Pearl's father came in and spoke. Now, he was a journalist that was murdered.
Where does this get shown? Different places?
It's been in many different, including Belmont Media Center. It's been here.
Huh.
Part of it has been here. Oh, it's been
Was
to
it Harvard Medical School, right?
And Stanford and Emory, University of Cincinnati, University of Maryland, Goucher College, Bates College, Berkeley, UC Berkeley, many, many places.
Now, the art, is it presented as slides or as a film? Is there?
They are. Originally I was showing the actual slides that were sent to me from Israel, but then there was they're no longer here, but Zeph Photo in Belmont.
Yes.
David Gordenstein had a big flatbed scanner, huge, and he was kind enough to allow me to scan all those X-rays. Wow. And make very high-res files. And then I got some help from Kodak, and Kodak told me to put it onto a special film called Duratrans. This may be too technical, people may not care about this, but onto Duratrans film, which has a milky back, and that means you don't need backlighting. You can see it without, however they look better when they're backlit. And then my husband is an engineer, and he also has a degree in sculpture, so he designed these freestanding kiosks, and they're internally lit, and they're very flexible. We can move them according to the space needs of the venue. They can be moved.
How fascinating.
Right.
Yes. So now your main interest now is what?
Okay, so now I still tour the X-Ray Project, but I got very interested in my own background, which is, like almost all American Jews, in my case, my grandparents came here from Russia, Poland, Belarusia area. It's called Ukraine. It's called the Pale of Settlement, and that was an area that was a ghetto, meaning that Jewish people had to live there and were not allowed to live outside. And they experienced a lot of well-documented persecution. So starting in the middle of the 19th century, they started to leave, and many of them, as many as could, came to the United States. So our Jewish community in the United States is not 100%, but very largely built on the descendants of those people. And there were three major waves of pogroms. The first would be sort of the Fiddler on the Roof. Everybody.
I was going to.
Yeah.
I was just thinking Fiddler on the Roof.
Right. Those were the early ones.
Yeah.
Then there was the 1905, 1906, and then during the Russian Civil War, the Bolsheviks against the Tsarists, the church people. That was a terrible, terrible period, and the rest of them came then. Mm-hmm. So it's pre-Holocaust. Anyway.
So what would the exhibit?
So that exhibit is similar. It's an installation. I was given an archive by somebody I knew at Harvard of very, very, very rare photographs that were published in a book in 1923 maybe, so right after the Russian Civil War. And this is an archive of photographs that were made, in many cases by the perpetrators, during the war. So it's an extremely rare glimpse into what happens when you get this sort of, you can think of Rwanda or something in our lifetimes. And also there were pictures made by medical professionals, pictures by townspeople, and I worked with those.
Now, how do you tie in the pictures, by whatever media and whatever size, with your message? And your message is?
Well, okay, so first of all, I'm very interested in not erasing history. And one thing that I did, I took those pictures and then I erased them. So some of them are exhibited side by side, the image and the image erased. Another thing I'm attempting to do is to collect statements from people who know that their family came from this area between the middle of the 19th century and maybe the first 2 decades or so of the 20th century. People who have family lore, family memories, are writing to me. You could probably even do it through the Media Center. But they're writing to me short descriptions of what happened to their family. And then I post these on the website to try to hold the history and to educate the next generation. And I also have a Facebook page that I've just recently created. I'm not very good at that stuff, but I did it.
Do you have a child in your family? Do you have a daughter? Or
I have 2 kids, 2 adult kids.
That's who I trust to explain anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Now, do you emphasize what has happened through the centuries to Jewish people, or is that a springboard for some other groups?
That was a springboard. That's a great way of putting it. So what happened was, when my show was here at the Media Center, I had a little bit of the X-Ray Project and a little bit of the new project, Why They Left, just sort of an introduction to it. And the Media Center brought in this absolutely fascinating speaker from South Sudan, which is the world's newest country. And his name is Bol, and he is a lost boy. Are you familiar with this term?
Mm-hmm. But explain it to the public, if you would.
Okay, so these are people that grew up in South Sudan. They are either Christian, they tend to be either Christian or practitioners of the native religions, the indigenous religions. They grew up in these very small villages. Even we've all seen pictures. The culture is dependent on cattle to this day. Very, very cattle dependent, and not particularly wealthy people for the most part. The government in Khartoum in the north started abusing these people, and they were a different religion. They're predominantly Muslim. They are lighter skinned. So there was prejudice both for religious reasons and for racial reasons. And they came in and did kind of a pogrom, a series of these just horrible attacks. And so what happened was hundreds of thousands of kids just ran. Their parents told them to run because they were actually enslaved. If a child was young enough, they would be taken into slavery often, if they were young enough to forget who they were and where they came from. So they ran, and they ran across South Sudan, across the Gilo River into Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, a civil war happened there, and they got kicked out of Ethiopia. They were being killed there, so they ran back into Sudan, more problems with the Sudanese militias, and then they went south into Kenya, and they came here.
Are there ways that some of your material and presentations can be done in schools or at a church or the town library?
I think it's really appropriate for that.
Yeah.
Especially the
Educate
Sudanese
us all.
piece. Right. I made with some help here at the Media Center again, long video interviews, but we also made a short 3-person clip and plus me. So in the beginning I explained for about a minute about what the pogroms were, just in real simple language with a few photographs, and then we shift into some photographs about the South Sudanese because it's obvious it's similar. And then I have just a few minutes of each of these 3 individuals describing what they went through. 2 of them were boys who fled, fled, and one of them was so young that in the original video he actually talks like a kid for 20 minutes. First we went here, not the one I'm going to show you, but we did this, I lost this relative, that relative. He gets to the camp in Kenya and he said, and then my teeth came in and they let me go to school. I was in 1st grade. And it's one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen in my life, because you realize, when do the second teeth come in? You're, 7 or 8, something? So this child spent his early years running and hiding and in bunkers and bombs, and but he talks about how important education is and how much he loves school.
Came to this country, didn't
and
they?
he came to this country and he went to a private school even and got educated. Yeah, so there are 3 of them, and they all have a slightly different story.
Could you tell us about the picture that we were going to move it closer? Do you want to just get up and bring it over
okay.
and chat about that a moment, so that it's easy for the camera to? What do you think?
Where should it go?
Yeah, right like
Right
this.
here.
Is this good? Oh, here?
Is that?
Okay. This is a painting that I made and I want to say I'm mainly a photographer, but I did this while I was developing the Why They Left project, the Jewish component, because this is my father very close to the end of his life.
You did this painting of
Yes, I
of
made
your father. Wow.
Yeah, and he was so troubled by, I guess you would say, the cruelties, particularly around anti-Semitism, that I think that as I saw him declining, it was the things that he taught me as a child that kind of encouraged me to pursue this.
Keep it alive.
Keep it alive and keep the history,
Zero in
because
on it a
it's.
bit. Can somebody bring the camera closer, or so we can see the picture better?
So that's an interesting,
Focus on it.
tying it up with empathy and sort of not, I think the trick is to not develop more hatred when
Right.
one sees these things.
Right. So you don't want to erase the past. That's
Correct.
terrible. You know who my other model was, actually? I've never really spoken about this publicly. And I don't mean this in a political way at all. But the election of Barack Obama and the education that was done when we were children around racism, and remember Roots and the awakening that the African American community had about their past, they decided to hold their history And instead of running or hiding from it, they became really proud of it, and they talked about it a lot. So I'm not saying politically, one way or another about our president, but what an amazing thing that anybody who ever lived through
Yes.
the United States in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, this was an unimaginable accomplishment. And we, Jewish people, have contributed so much and, gone all over the place in the United States, although we still have never had a president. But it's not good to forget where you came from.
Absolutely.
And it's always good, I think, to be rooted in who you are and what you actually experience, and not to sugarcoat it in a way, just to accept it, and then move forward from there. So.
Well, I think that's so true. That's so true. Now, I want to thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Diane.
We hope to have you back and seeing more of the examples of your work. We'll make a separate program about all that.
I would love to share
Yeah.
the Sudanese piece because
That would be wonderful.
this is so current, and we should all be aware of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No doubt
thank
about
you.
it. No doubt about
Thank
it.
you so much.
Thank you. So would you like to give us a little news about the...
Yes, we have two more things
Senior
for the
Center?
show. One is to do with the senior center, and then we're going to have a surprise clip showing a film at the end about another topic that's of interest, and Jeff will see to it we get. But what I wanted to mention, because evidently a lot of families have not yet gotten, that was mailed to be mailed out to every citizen in Belmont, or resident in Belmont, was the senior notes this time, because there's an awful lot of important things, including this, if you can come up on that.
No.
The opening of the fitness center, okay? No? Okay. Well, in Friday, March 2nd, is gone by as far as when they began taking applications. Not a problem. But you can join on Monday, March 12th, from 9 to 1 p.m. at the Senior Center for open house to see and learn more about the fitness center that we have been struggling to get going for years. And light refreshments will be served and so forth. And this picture, if there was a way to get a little closer, is just the example of all of the equipment.
Go ahead.
No, I guess not.
Yeah, thank you.
And then there was another thing that was important happening there. There's going to be where did it go? Navaniv and so forth. This coming right up. Oh Lord, I had it all marked. Never mind.
Okay.
Okay.
So moving right along, then we're going to now see a clip of the Thomas Clark House, moved from Common Street. A lot of us got out there to watch this big event, and now we're going to see a clip of the actual move for those who weren't able to get there. Thank you very much. Until next time, bye-bye.
Well, it's such an adventure. It's like a great celebration. The house was built in 1760, and they're moving it to try to preserve it because the place where it was has been bought, and they're going to build another house there. The problem they're running into is having to trim all the trees in order to be able to get the house through. So that's what everybody's watching. I don't know the name of the group, but it's a private group that's interested in preservation and the historical buildings in the town, and they've managed to raise the money to do this move. It's one of the oldest houses in the town.